I'm Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville. We are really excited to be hosting our annual legislative town hall meeting, and we are going to be talking about our own legislative agendas, what we anticipate coming in this Senate and House this year, and then obviously save lots of time for questions from you all. So we are going to start with our most junior person. And before I do, I just want to thank Michael Tardif, who is an extraordinary leader on the Montgomery County Democratic Central Committee. And Michael helps coordinate, facilitate, and manage all of this and makes it all easy for the rest of us. So Michael, thank you for facilitating and for all you do year round. We're going to toss this off to get started to with our newest delegate, Joe Vogel, who has been a delegate for since last Wednesday at noon, and he's going to tell you about his legislative agenda. I will recognize the elected officials after a little bit, but we still have some folks coming in. So, Delegate Vogel, it's all.
Thank you, Senator. How long do we have?
I think if each of us goes about 10 minutes or so, that'd be great.
Okay, great. Well, good evening, everyone. I've been looking forward to this all day, really all week. So it's great to be on here with all of you, and I'm just looking around to all the friendly faces that I'm just so excited to see on here. It has been an exciting and a very busy week. Me and my team, my chief of staff, Nicole Rios, Mercedes Apoku, our session aide, and Emmanuel Ching, who's running our communications efforts, have really hit the ground running, working on a lot of important issues, many of which came up during the campaign trail, and now I'm just really excited to be able to put into action here. I will say, we are on the eve of a very historic day here in Maryland. I was walking around up to the Capitol earlier today and just saw everything being set up for the inauguration tomorrow, and it is literally a new day in the state of Maryland, and I am just so thrilled to have the opportunity to work with Governor Moore, with Lieutenant Governor Aruna Miller, with Comptroller Brooke Learman, and Attorney General Anthony Brown, all of whom have either been sworn in recently or will be sworn in tomorrow, and to support their Leave No One Behind agenda, which focuses on creating more economic opportunity, making sure that we have the best schools in the country, that we are quite literally leaving no one behind in our economy and our state. I just want to touch quickly on a few of the legislature's priorities, which I think are critical and relevant to the issues that we're seeing here in the state, but really across the country. And then I'll spend some time talking about what I'm working on. And then I'm more than anything looking forward to answering all of your questions at the end of this. So first of all, the legislature some of our most important priorities are in reaction to what's happening nationally, right? So the Supreme Court's attacks on women reproductive rights, and the Supreme Court's efforts to undermine gun safety laws. So on reproductive rights, the House of Delegates was able to get this done last year, and I look forward to voting to support it again this year, which is to codify abortion rights in the Maryland Constitution. And hopefully that'll be one of the first votes that we get to take, and I'm really, really looking forward to that. And second, on the gun violence front, right, in reaction to the Supreme Court's Bruin decision, we have to make sure that we shore up our gun safety laws here to make sure that every Marylander is safe in school, on the streets, at church, at the supermarket. We know we have an epidemic of gun violence here in the state of Maryland and really across the country, and we have to take common sense steps to address that. I'm serving on the Ways and Means Committee with our fabulous delegate, Julie Vlakovich-Carr. We sit kind of diagonal and across from each other. And we work on issues related to revenue, to early childhood care, to education. So really just such important matters that we're going to be taking on this upcoming session, related to the blueprint, related to childcare, related to a fair tax system. So really looking forward to that work. In terms of my bills and the work that I'll be spearheading, first let me just add something before I jump into that, which is I know and I hope some of you were on this call. I I've heard from a lot of speech pathologists in our community and those who are working on wraparound services in our schools. And I've been engaged in some of the conversations related to how we can, best support you and your professions and make sure that you're getting the fair compensation that you deserve. So we'll hopefully have some exciting updates there. But I know it's not going to be listed as one of my pieces of legislation, because there's actually someone else working on that, which is really exciting. So first of all, we know how important a strong and free press is to our democracy, and we know how important small businesses are to our economy. There was a bill that was sponsored in Congress that didn't move, that stalled, that sought to help both our small businesses while also creating more revenue for our local newspapers. I'm seeking to replicate that here on the state level and hopefully get it passed. And what it would do is essentially create a tax credit for small businesses to advertise in local news sources, right? Allowing small businesses to amplify either the work they're doing or the products that they're selling, while also helping our local newspapers who are struggling right now to generate the revenue they need to continue doing the important work that they do for our democracy. Number two, we've seen the unfortunate rise in hate crimes here in our community and really across the state. And I'm working with folks in the Office of the Attorney General and advocacy groups from across the state to turn what is currently a task force working on hate crimes issues into a more permanent commission and provide them with the resources they need to better do their to be able to better address the rise in hate crimes and prevent future hate crimes. And we'll also be tasking them, if this legislation passes, with an ask to produce a report to the legislature to give us direction as to what we can do moving forward to help address this rise in hate crimes. Number three, I've spoken with many of you out in the community who are really worried about the mental health crisis, especially the mental health crisis in our schools. Just a couple weeks ago, I visited Richard Montgomery High School, and I met with about 150 student government leaders from across the county. And the vast majority of their questions to me were about mental health. So that, I think, is a very clear signal that we have a crisis in our schools that needs to be addressed. The issue is that there is a shortage of providers, and it is hard to recruit and retain mental health professionals to work in our schools. There are a whole series of different bills being introduced this session that seeks to address that. I'm excited to be sponsoring one of them, and I've been just today, I had a few conversations with folks at the School Psychologists Association and other related organizations. And the bill that I'll be sponsoring would expand an existing debt forgiveness program to forgive the student debt of mental health professionals who are currently working in our schools. To not the full amount of their debt, unfortunately, but a certain amount based on an existing program. The last bill that I'll mention is one that I just before this, I was just on another call working on this, which is banning minors from being able to purchase diet pills. Diet pills are dangerously underregulated, and there have been efforts really across the country to try to fix that. You are 6 times more likely as a minor to be diagnosed with an eating disorder after you use a diet pill. It is, there is a challenge in that there is a big industry, right, that is supporting them. But I'm working with a group of incredible advocates, a lot of young people from across the state who have been mobilizing on this issue, and it's really exciting to see them all coming together to try to get this done. I'll mention one more issue, and then I'll give up the floor here, which is related to climate. So I see an incredible opportunity for us here in Maryland to continue leading the way in climate action, not just by reducing our own emissions and electrifying here at home, but also by taking steps to innovate, right? We're really good innovators here in the state of Maryland. We lead the way on research and development on so many fronts. I want to see us do the same on climate. So there's a bill that I'm working on that would help our climate startups continue to grow and succeed and do the important work that they do, creating jobs here and also helping not just Maryland in this effort to decarbonize, but really the entire country and hopefully the entire world. So those are my priorities here. Once again, I look forward to taking your questions, but really just let me end with how grateful I am for this incredible opportunity that I have to serve and represent you all. Please know that my office is always open. It's HB 224 in the House office building. Send me an email, give me a call. My personal cell phone number is 240-731-9896. Call me and I'll answer it. Thank you, everyone.
All right, Delegate Joe Vogel, very proud. Everybody's really impressed with our newest delegate here. Next up is back for her second term, Delegate Julie Polakovich-Carr, also on Ways and Means, and also super well liked and respected. Delegate Polakovich-Carr.
Thank you, Senator Kagan. And thank you, everybody, for being here this evening. We always appreciate the opportunity to get to talk with you and connect with you about what's going on in Annapolis and to hear your questions and concerns and how we can best represent you in the legislature. I think it's worth noting that this is the first time, actually, that the four of us from District 17 have been together since Delegate Vogel officially became a delegate last week. And we're so glad to have you on board, Joe. And we're really looking forward to working together as a team this session and beyond. Well, Joe did a great job of highlighting some of the big issues that are before us this session. I just want to flag a few before drilling down and talking a little bit more about the work that I'm focusing on this session. Two of the big ones that are returning from the last legislative session are paid family leave and also cannabis. In terms of paid family leave, I was very proud that last session we did pass kind of the initial framework to get a paid family leave system in Maryland so that when someone has a new baby, adopts a baby, has a spouse or family member who needs more care or has medical issues, that we are able to give those people some paid time off. We didn't quite get all the details worked out last session, but this year we will be taking that topic back up and hopefully getting that completely across the finish line and have that system set up in the next year or two for Maryland just to start to take advantage of. In terms of cannabis, I think everyone's aware that voters did approve recreational cannabis in the November elections. And this was another area where we passed some of the framework this last session, but there are still some finer points in terms of licensing for businesses, for the taxation system, et cetera, that still need to be worked out. And we can expect that legislation to be coming forward this session as well. This year, in terms of my own legislation, I have a full plate again. I think I'll be sponsoring 16 bills this session, largely in the same topics that I've been focused in for the last few years: progressive tax policy, pro-democracy election reforms, and then another big topic for me this year is around housing. And let me just drill down a little bit on some of the things I'm working on in each of those areas. So on the tax policy front, I'm still very laser focused on making sure our tax code is fair and equitable, and that, for the vast majority of us and probably everybody who's on this call, that, we get a fair shake in terms of our tax system, because right now our tax code still disproportionately benefits the very wealthy few and wealthy corporations. So I have a number of bills on this front, from closing corporate tax loopholes to pushing to expand our state's child tax credit, which we got a small toehold passed a few years ago that I sponsored along with Senator Nancy King. So really looking forward to working with the new administration on this front, really to make sure that the state has the revenues that we need to fully implement the education reforms that we passed in the blueprint for Maryland's future, but also just fully implement the vision of incoming Governor Wes Moore and his administration. On the elections front, I have one returning bill to enable Montgomery County to use ranked choice voting for local elections. But I am also working on some new bills, including in campaign finance reform, which has been kind of a perennial issue for me. This year, I'm working on a piece of legislation to ban untraceable cryptocurrency campaign contributions or expenditures. For the same reason we don't allow campaigns to accept stocks and we limit how much they can take in cash, we want to make sure that we know where money is coming from in politics. I am also working on a bill this session to put some safeguards in place in terms of the legislative appointment process. We've already seen so far this year that there have been a few members of the General Assembly who have been picked to go into the administration. And there's been some debate in Annapolis for literally years about should we have special elections or not. And right now under our state's constitution, we don't have special elections. Personally, I would favor going in that direction, but that doesn't seem like something that is likely to pass this year. So I'm taking kind of a new approach, which is, well, let's put some safeguards in place, ensure that we have a very transparent process for when legislative appointments are being made by central committees. And I do want to give a shout out to Michael and to all of his colleagues on the central committee. They do a really great job. And I think Montgomery County has been kind of the shining light of how it should be done. And we have set the example for the rest of the state. And we're hoping to put those reforms in place for both Democratic and Republican central committees. And lastly, on the housing front, we know that there is a great need right now in terms of housing. People who are trying to buy a house are dealing with, very high, historically high mortgage interest rates. Housing prices have gone up significantly. And similarly for renters in Maryland, rents have gone up by an average of 12% in just 1 year. That is not sustainable for many families. So I'm working on a few bills on this front, especially to help the very lowest income families in Maryland, especially families who have kids and who are receiving temporary cash assistance, basically to get more dollars in their pockets so that they can actually afford housing and are not at risk of homelessness. I also am working on a bill to put more money into building affordable housing in our state. Additionally, I do want to mention that in recent months, I have taken on a new role as chair of the Montgomery County House delegation. And I just am so proud of the 26 members of our delegation. I think we are the smartest and hardest working delegation in the State House, in addition to being the largest. But it's an incredibly talented group of people. And I'm really, enjoying transitioning into that role as well as representing the people of Rockville and Gaithersburg. So if anyone has even more of an interest into diving into, semi-local politics, I think getting engaged in the delegation and seeing the local bills, which are state pieces of legislation that impact just Montgomery County that we're working on. We are in the midst of taking up many of those pieces of legislation now. So finally, let me just say that, everyone here, please reach out to us if we can be of service in any way, help you with state agencies, or if you just have questions, concerns, want to voice your opinion about the legislation that's coming before us this session. We always appreciate hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Polakovich-Carr. Great job as always. Before we go to our veteran delegate here and chairman, I just want to acknowledge the elected officials in the room, and folks are here. I think I've got everyone. From the Rockville Mayor and Council, we have council members, Beryl Feinberg, David Miles, Monique Ashton, and Mark Pershela. Thank you all for taking time to join us. We have Rockville's wonderful police chief, Victor Brito. We have Margie Graff, who is the CEO of the Rockville Chamber of Commerce. We have the city manager, Rob DeSpirito, as well as former Rockville Mayor Steve Van Grack, former Kensington Mayor Pete Fosselman, former Gaithersburg Council Member Yvette Monroe. And since this is a Democratic Party event, I want to give a special shout out to Al Rosen, who's been working in the trenches for forever, and always, always our beloved, wonderful, indefatigable Ellie Shaw Belvidia. I'm not sure that anyone has put more hours other than Wes Moore on Wes's campaign, and certainly in our area. Just extraordinary. Thank you, Ellie, for all your hard work. On the Democratic Central Committee, Saman Ahmad, the new chair, Jason Spiegel, who's doing a wonderful job for us in District 17, really serious big props. Michael Tardif, who I already gave a shout out to before, who's helping coordinate this. Andrew Sondry, who is the treasurer of the Democratic Central Committee. I think Jennifer Hosey was here, but she is abstaining from showing her face. So I'm not sure if she's.
I'm showing my face, Cheryl Kagan.
Okay, good to see you then. With that, we're going to pass it along to Delegate Kumar Barve, who was first elected in 1990. Jennifer's now disappeared again. Is elected in 1990 as chair of the Environment and Transportation Committee, and Delegate Barve, Chairman Barve.
Thank you, Senator. It's a great pleasure to be here with you all. Thank you for being up on an evening to listen to us. This is an exciting time. We're going to inaugurate the first African-American governor in the state's history, the first South Asian lieutenant governor in the state's history, and we've just gotten, Anthony Brown as the Attorney General and Brooke Learman as our controller. So these are new and exciting times. So the Environment and Transportation Committee that I chair are basically going to focus on those issues, of course, primarily. With respect to the environment, we're going to continue to broaden the efforts we undertook with regard to climate change. As you know, last year we passed a law that is being regarded as the most far-reaching climate solution law in the nation. We have some of the most ambitious targets for reducing carbon intensity, and we have some of the most specific strategies for electrifying our economy, and we are going to be moving very aggressively on that over the next 4 years. Next, with respect to transportation, of course, we look forward to working very closely with the Moore-Miller administration in figuring out a smart way to improve transportation in I-270. Of course, the former governor's proposal with respect to the road appears to be on its back feet because people are beginning to realize that we need to do something that doesn't impinge upon the living space of the city of Rockville and Gaithersburg quite so much as the I-270 Beltway plans that Governor Hogan put together. So we're going to be really exploring this year and over the next several years a more multimodal strategy for moving people in the area. And by multimodal, what I mean is not just roads, but also rail, transit, possible use of monorail strategies. These are all a part of the mix because at the end of the day, the real objective is to move people and goods and services, not necessarily cars, although that's a big part of it. So I intend to be working very closely with the incoming administration and especially with Aruna Miller, who has as her specialty transportation, and she is being regarded as the super secretary for transportation for the administration. So we look forward to working with her very closely. Another area of interest and concentration for my committee is, in fact, housing. And I think before we go into any of the details associated with how we intend to address this, I think it's important for us to realize that, like the price of anything, housing is affected by supply and demand. And like many jurisdictions throughout the United States of America, there is a serious deficit in available affordable housing for people. Not enough houses, not enough rental units, not enough townhouses, and it's understood that there is an entire missing middle in our housing stock in Maryland and throughout the United States. And so this is an area where we're going to be engaging in a great deal of investigation. Specifically, one topic that we're going to be examining in my committee this year is the new phenomenon of hedge funds coming in and buying up hundreds of houses in a community and then jacking up rental prices. Something which, by the way, could never happen economically were it not for the great scarcity of housing. So these are among the topics that we're going to be investigating very, very carefully. And finally, one other issue that was on our plate and which we need to conclude is the phenomenon of individuals engaging in exhibition driving on our roads. It's happening all too often, whether it's in Silver Spring, in Prince George's County, in Ocean City, in Western Maryland, in Hagerstown, where gangs of people in their vehicles take over intersections, just run rampant in the area, making it extremely dangerous for pedestrians to cross roads. It's really pretty scary, and it's a serious violation of law, and we really need to start writing laws to crack down on this. We know we can do it successfully because in Ocean City, Maryland, there was a phenomenon of these racing crews just taking over the downtown of Ocean City, Maryland, and making it literally, not figuratively, literally impossible for families to cross the road because there were cars spinning out. we basically made the law so that the law enforcement agencies could impound vehicles and set really strict penalties to discourage that kind of behavior. It's worked there, and we're going to implement it throughout the entire state of Maryland. So I'm going to leave it there. I know that you have lots and lots of interesting questions. I look forward to answering them. And again, thank you so much for being here and listening to us. And I really look forward to hearing your questions.
Thank you, Delegate Kumar Barve. Thank you to all three of them. We have a great team in Annapolis. I'm going to speak in a moment, but I just want to recognize that in the chat, there were people, as I was indicating, there's totally car noise and car problems in our area. And again, a shout out to Chief Brito in Rockville, and then Chief Soroka in Gaithersburg. They are aware of it, and the question is how to address it. And both chiefs, I think we've all had conversations about that. So if anyone has ideas, go to Chairman Barve, because he's going to be focused on that. So I am going to share screen, and I'm going to do the PowerPoint thing because it's just easier to guide the journey and the conversation that way. I hope you all can see this. Yes. Yes, somebody nod so I can get going. Yes.
It's
yet,
Senator
not yet.
that's starting.
Hey. Okay. So okay. So I just want to
It's just saying
Wait,
it
it says
started.
you're sharing. Yeah, there it is.
There we go.
okay. So the one of the most important things that has happened recently is that the Senate has totally remade its committee systems, and my committee, which used to be Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs, is now Education, Energy, Environment, and I say and elections. So I call it E-Quad, although it might be called 3E or triple E or E cubed. Everybody calls it something different. But we also have a new chair. My longtime chair, Paul Pinsky, has now just been named by the Moore-Miller administration as the head of the Maryland Energy Administration. So we'll still be able to work together on energy, but I'll be doing it in the Senate, and he'll be running it for Wes and Aruna. So very exciting. We gave away health occupations to the Finance Committee, as well as our oversight of alcohol bills, but we retained a lot of other stuff, and these are 4 of the big ones. In terms of my own legislative agenda, I think most of you have probably heard me say more times than you'd like to hear that 3 people have died in my district when 911 has failed. Maryland is at the forefront of next generation 911 based on the commission that I've chaired the last 4 years. And we are just doing really big things in Maryland, and we'll continue that work. Nonprofits, I passed 3 bills to support the nonprofit sector last session. They all passed the Senate unanimously. Unfortunately, the House started running out of time. It was towards the end. 2 of the bills are being heard on Thursday of this week. Consumer protection, I continue to work on issues related to this in partnership with the Attorney General's office and Montgomery County's own Office of Consumer Affairs. Election reform. You all may remember that I passed 3 election bills, emergency election bills. One of them was in partnership with our own Delegate Polakovich Carr, who was just a couple weeks ago recognized by the Maryland Association of Counties as one of their total rock stars of the year. So we got that done, and that was really important. One of my 3 emergency bills, though, almost former governor Larry Hogan, less than a day away, just irresponsibly and unexpectedly vetoed. And that is why we had such a mess in the primary. And it took over 4 weeks to certify the election results. It's about counting the mail-in ballots early. And he decided to veto that for very partisan political reasons. And it really created a hot mess. So we are bringing that bill back, and a number of other election bills. 311 is the non-emergency number when you need help. So whether it's what day is my recycling being picked up, or there's a tree that fell in my driveway, something that you don't actually need to get, police, fire, paramedics with lights and sirens and all that, but you do need to connect with government. And maybe English isn't your first language. Maybe you don't have a computer and you just, or don't have the patience or skill to navigate a website to figure out the right person to call. We have it in Montgomery County. It's in 6 jurisdictions around the state, and we are looking to become the very first state to make it statewide. And I can tell you that Wes and Aruna love this idea, and I think we're going to prepare, hopefully, to move that forward this year. Freedom to Serve is a bill that I enacted in 2019, but it was too narrow. And so I'm bringing it back to expand it. And what that says, and I want to give a shout out to Jason Spiegel, a veteran and a Democratic leader on behalf of veterans. If you have been honorably discharged from the military and you've been background checked and trained and all that, and you are not yet a citizen, we think you should be able to apply to become a police officer. And we have an extreme shortage of police officers. Our law enforcement folks are hurting for lack of personnel. Some of you might have heard the NPR story this morning that showed a tripling of response rates. This is a population that is ready and eager to serve, and it's a career path that they should be able to follow. Delegate Jared Solomon from Montgomery County and I are doing the gender neutral bathrooms. Council member Evan Glass sponsored, and then the council with our own Sydney Katz, and then the county council unanimously passed gender neutral bathrooms when there is one stall. So if you think about your own bathroom at home, or the hotel room that you're staying in, or the airplane, like, these are not gendered bathrooms. But if there's one toilet, anyone should be able to pee there. So, men, women, people with disabilities, parents with toddlers of another gender, people who are trans. There are, senior citizens whose caretaker might be of another gender. So we just want it to be comfortable for anyone to use a bathroom if there is one toilet. Gas price gouging is a bill that I've brought before. There is an even greater intensity now that gas prices have just been so high. I think you all know that it's a tiny fraction of people who use cash. And if you can see in this photo, you can see the cash price is enormous, and it's in neon. And when you're driving by, you can totally see it. And this is old, obviously. We wish we could just pay $2.39. But here you can see on the ground, not lit, it's 6 cents more. We have recently seen 25 cents more per gallon of ripoffs like this. The Attorney General calls it bait and switch. You pull in thinking you're going to pay this price, the $2.39, and then as soon as you get to the gas pump, it's higher than that. Outside of my own agenda, we're also obviously continuing to work on education. I think it's already been mentioned that we're going to be doing cannabis, climate, transportation always. Delegate Barve talked about that, and it has already been talked about that we must put abortion in our, solidly in our law books and in our Constitution. I am very proud to have been the very first legislator outside of Baltimore City to endorse Wes Moore in the fall of 2021. And I am over the moon that Wes Moore and Aruna Miller are going to be sworn in tomorrow to lead our state forward and leave no one behind. So that's at noon, and then the inaugural ball is tomorrow evening. The 4 of us are going to be working together, as we always do, on local bond initiatives. You may remember that they were called bond bills, and it's capital funding for the cities of Gaithersburg and Rockville, for nonprofits. And we have a number of those that we are going to be sponsoring and hoping to bring money back from the state to support these worthy projects. I recently was teaching a whole auditorium full of high school students, and I asked, how many of you know what 988 is? And do you know how many people raised their hand? One teacher knew about it. So I just want to put it out there. Please, if you know anyone, and we all do know people who are in crisis, who might be thinking about suicide, it is a national 3-digit number where they can get help, or they can just get a compassionate ear. Please help spread the word about that. I've had a podcast now for a few years, Kibitzing with Kagan. A kibitz is a short chat, and they last about half an hour, plus or minus. Most recently, I have done my new chair. I've done the new majority leader. I have also chatted with Wes Moore, with Aruna Miller, with our Attorney General, Anthony Brown, with our Comptroller, Brooke Learman, and many, many others, as well as nonprofit leaders and others. So check that out and subscribe on my YouTube channel or on Apple Podcasts. And then I'm very active on social media. So you can find me on my Senator page, which is where this is live streaming, on Twitter, on Instagram, and through YouTube. So with that, I will stop sharing and just say how thrilled I am. And I think I'm speaking on behalf of all four of us. There are 10 new senators. We've just are losing another one, Susan Lee, from our district right next door, is going to be the Secretary of State. So we'll get another new senator. And there are 39 or maybe 40 something, 41 maybe, once it's said and done, new members of the House of Delegates out of 141 members. And it's very exciting. There's a lot of talent. There's a lot of diversity, ethnically, linguistically, politically, and everyone comes in with great ideas and a lot of passion for making a difference. So with that, let us see if we can take some questions. If you would like to ask a question of us, we're just going to ask that you be brief and not too long speeches, and you can address it to all four of us, or if there's just one of us that following up on something that we talked about. So if you want to raise hand, that would be great. Or you can, if you're not sure how to find that, you can just kind of do this and Michael can help us see you.
I got one.
Alan Rosen.
Can you hear me?
Al, go for it.
It's mainly probably to Kumar, but this is for everybody. And this is my pet peeve. You heard me talk about this in the past about the Bay Bridge. The new one replacing where it's going to be. Enough of the studies. It's got to get done 10 years ago. It's got to get done. This is for the whole state people who go to the Eastern Shore. I'm dead serious.
Yeah, you're right.
Yes, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't cut you off, did I?
No, I'm finished.
Okay. All right, good. One thing that's made this very, very difficult is many, many years ago, the Eastern Shore was able to pass a law that basically said if you build another bridge across the Chesapeake Bay, you had to have the agreement of both, I believe, both counties on either side of where the bridge is. And naturally, what that did is it created a situation where any one of the Eastern Shore counties would be able to exercise a veto over another bridge. They are obviously very opposed to this. And so I agree with you completely. I think that we need to have another crossing over the Chesapeake Bay. It's especially important for the residents of Anne Arundel County. And the only way that would happen is if we write a law to specifically make an exception to that pre-existing law. And I'm certainly very much in favor of that. We would have to get the support of both the House and the Senate and the governor to be able to do that. And it's certainly something I agree with you on, but I'm not going to lie to you. This is a big political lift to go and change a pre-existing principle in the law.
Okay. Thank you.
You. We do have a lot of hands raised. So I, even though, so I'm going to call on Roz first because she also put it in the chat. I'm going to read her chat. If you want to unmute Roz in case you want to add anything. This was directed to Delegate Polakovich-Carr. What is your approach to ensuring tax equity while attracting businesses, and I will say, and nonprofits, and investment in Montgomery County? Delegate Polakovich-Carr, do you want to take that?
Sure. Yes. Thank you for the question. And I think this is one of those perennial issues in Montgomery County. Certainly some of the data that had been released in the years kind of leading up to the pandemic were troubling in terms of, how are we competing regionally in terms of keeping and attracting jobs. For many employers, really this decision about where to locate comes down to, do they have an educated workforce? Are there people that they can hire there? So really Montgomery College has been really critical in terms of being that pipeline in Montgomery County, especially to filling kind of new emerging fields, let's say. And I really give a lot of credit to both Montgomery College and the universities at Shady Grove at being responsive in terms of what the education needs are and spinning up new degrees, even degrees that are less than, say, a 4-year or 2-year degree to meet some of those emerging workforce issues. I'd say the other big key issue in our county really comes down to transportation. If people can't get to a job, if businesses can't get the supplies that they need delivered and they're stuck in traffic, that's a big concern. Our county does have a very robust plan for bus rapid transit, as well as other expansions and maintenance of public transit options in our county. And we know how critical those are, especially for the fairly sizable number of Montgomery County residents that don't own a car. The county actually last year, when they were debating about whether or not to reinstate bus fares, looked at this and they found something like 2/3 of bus riders in our county don't own a car. So it's not a choice for many people. So we need to make sure we're continuing to invest in those areas so that people can get to the good jobs, that employers have access to the workforce that they need. Because certainly the state of the labor market right now is still very tough for many employers in terms of getting the workforce that they need.
Thank you.
Thank
Delegate
you.
Partridge
Thank
Carr.
you.
Thank you, Roz, for the question. Let me remind folks that if you would like to ask a question, that you can use the raise hand feature. And if your first name and last name must be on, and we want to see your face in advance of our calling on you. So Clark Reed, you're up next.
Thank you, Cheryl. This is a question about a law that was passed a couple of years ago, community choice aggregation, that would allow Montgomery County to procure clean, renewable energy in mass. And I was wondering what the status update would be on this, and maybe what jurisdictions like Montgomery County and Rockville could be doing to help prepare for that. Thank you.
Mara, is that you?
Well, not quite. That's regulated primarily by the House Economic Matters Committee. But let me simply say that obviously we passed some laws on this, and there's been a lot of disagreement between the Public Service Commission and the Montgomery County government on how this ought to be implemented. And in a public hearing very recently, County Executive Mark Elrich basically accused the Public Service Commission of dragging its feet with respect to the regulations. So I know that as members of the Montgomery County delegation, all 4 of us are going to be appealing to our colleagues. Actually, wait a minute, Cheryl, your committee now has energy. So really, once you start listening to public hearings on this, you'll be the expert on this, although you haven't had any public hearings yet, so you're not yet. But really, this is going to be right in Senator Cheryl Kagan's alley very shortly. And so she is the person who you should appeal to in the future on that. So I will stop talking now.
So I continue to be vice chair of my committee, which is very exciting, but with a new chair. But we just had a briefing. I had a briefing today on energy. Today we had a briefing on housing as the full committee. So lots of stuff as we get started. So I do want to acknowledge that, well, let's continue to go in order. David Winfield, you're up next.
Let me unmute here.
You're good.
I would like to know, what are the prospects for ranked choice voting in this session of the Assembly?
Great question. I'm a big supporter. Delegate Polakovich Carr, you talked about that.
Yeah. Hi, David. Good to see you. We actually passed 2 ranked choice bills out of the Montgomery County House delegation on Friday. One was my bill, the enabling bill I spoke about earlier. Additionally, Delegate David Moon, who represents Tacoma Park and in the Silver Spring area, has a piece of legislation that takes a little bit different tact. It partly has to do just with Tacoma Park, which already uses ranked choice voting, but kind of more broadly would force our state department or state board of elections to make sure that the next time they are going through the procurement process to get voting equipment, that it is compatible with ranked choice so that there is not an additional cost. We also passed that bill on Friday as well. Neither bill has been scheduled yet for hearings in the House Ways and Means Committee, but you know how to reach me. We're happy to keep in touch and keep you posted in terms of what's happening this session as those bills move along.
I can tell you that I've talked to the president's office on a similar vein, not bringing a bill this year, but putting in budget language. So we're going to have different tactics for seeing whether we can authorize any local jurisdiction. I have also encouraged Gaithersburg and Rockville. So we've got some leadership from both cities here, and there are elections in Rockville this year, and there's the opportunity at some point for maybe new leadership in each city to start moving forward on ranked choice voting to show that it's easy to do and voters don't get confused by it. So thank you for the question. I'm gonna, Tom Lonergan Seeger, you are here from the Deputy City Manager from the city of Gaithersburg. Want to give you an opportunity, and we're really glad you're here and we love working with you. So thanks for joining us.
We love working with you, and apologies for a late arrival and for a lower than usual presence at this meeting, Senator and team. As I mentioned, we are actually holding our mayor and council meeting this evening. Typically that's a Monday night, but yesterday was a holiday. And, not only is it a regular council meeting, we're actually, as we're speaking right now, I just stepped out of the room to call into you. We're hosting a joint public hearing on a redevelopment plan for a new Lake Forest Mall site. So the developer, as I'm speaking to you on the second floor, is one floor below me, presenting a very comprehensive mixed-use plan to the Mayor, Council, and Planning Commission. It's the sketch plan. This is the first step of what will be a very long process that will have lots of opportunity for public input. So if anyone's interested, I'm not encouraging anybody to leave this town hall meeting right now, but you can on YouTube or on the City of Gaithersburg's webpage at a later time to see what the sketch plan is all about. The plan itself is also on the city's website on our project page. Lots of opportunities for you to look at what's proposed and opportunities for you to provide input on the plan. And finally, Senator, if I could, I just wanted to mention, and I believe Delegate Palaka-Vizcara has reached out with questions about at least one tenant at the current mall. As you know, there are still tenants in the mall. The mall is expected to close by late March. Mm-hmm. There are a couple of dozen tenants that will be displaced by this closure. The city and Montgomery County are working very closely with these tenants right now to help them with locating new space, identifying grant and other financial programs that might be available to help them with the relocation. Just wanted to let you know that we are not leaving them high and dry.
Very helpful. Thank you, Tom. And again, thank you to all of our partners in Gaithersburg. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Seth.
Go back to the meeting. Go fix the Lake Forest. Make it fabulous. All right. Yasmin Reyazuddin, you are up next. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, everyone. It is good to see you all, and congratulations for the winning. I just wanted to invite everyone for the Louis Braille birthday party, which is coming up on January 22nd at the Rockville Library. And this is from the National Federation of the Blind.
Thank you, Yasmin. Do you want to say what time that's going to be?
It's going to be from 2 to 3:30.
2 to 3:30?
In the afternoon, yes.
Okay.
Please, everyone come, and we will have a birthday cake. We will have some fun games and activities for everyone in the family.
Thank you so much. Okay, so all are invited and it's free and it's at the Rockville Library. Perfect. Thank you very much for sharing that. I'm going to jump to Chief Brito. Since I've already invoked him a couple of times, what would you like to share with us this evening?
Good evening, Senator Kagan. First and foremost, I just wanted to say you've been extraordinarily helpful to me here. Always supportive, always available. And I know we talk early, late, weekends and everything. So I'm greatly appreciative of everything you've done and continue to do. It's extraordinary. But I want to talk, and and I want to thank the rest of the delegation 17. It's important, in the city of Rockville, I think we all recognize, and from all segments of our community, is that loud vehicle noise is a significant hindrance to the livability of our community. and others. But I'll focus on the city of Rockville. Something that we've spoke about and we've worked very hard at trying to enforce. I don't think there'll ever be a way that police officers will ever be able to enforce our way out of this particular case, but any help moving forward legislation through the General Assembly regarding automated enforcement, similar to automated traffic enforcement or other red light or speed light cameras, using technology which is available to where we could use that same platform to change this behavior would be greatly appreciated. So, I don't want to belabor it, but I want to thank you all for even, talking about this and moving forward. But our city, and I can speak, I believe, for our elected officials and certainly our community and our police department, I'm 1000% behind it.
Yeah. Let me say this, Chief. Thank you for saying that. One technology that was brought to our attention in a public hearing last year were listening devices that could hear some of the loud muffler and horn sounds and very quickly identify where they were happening so that law enforcement could nab these folks. Oftentimes what happens is people drive through neighborhoods, as you are aware, and by the time the police get there, they're gone. And there are new technologies that I understand are coming online that help law enforcement to crack down on these situations. And my committee is very interested in working with you and other law enforcement to use that technology and others.
Yes, if I can be self-promoting for a moment, I am actually working on that bill. And Senator Guile from Anne Arundel County, or I'm sorry, Senator Pam Beidel is the cross file for that legislation. We do not have it back from drafting yet, but it would enable any municipality or county, if they wanted to be able to use those kind of sound cameras. And we're building in kind of all the safeguards that the speed camera program already has in state law.
Great, that's wonderful.
Great. Dave Mosher, you're up next. Welcome.
Thank you, Cheryl. I want to ask about making the priority be to expand and continue this pilot program that we have for community solar. It's really helped a lot of communities in Maryland to have access to renewable solar energy, and it's due to expire in 2024. So we'd really like to see that continue or even be expanded as well.
Kumar, Julie?
Well, first of all, the big problem in Montgomery County is the county council passed a zoning ordinance last year that basically functionally banned community solar in the ag reserve. And so we're going to have to come to a new consensus on what the parameters should be so that we'll be able to welcome these folks back into our county. A lot of people don't realize this, but solar that's on residential rooftops is 6 times more expensive than many community solar arrays. And so it's important to understand the economics of solar energy so that we can move toward our goal of having 14% of our electricity coming from solar sources, which is already in the laws of the state of Maryland. And so right now, the two bottlenecks are, number one, local jurisdictions enacting regulations that make it very difficult to build community solar, and number two, in the Public Service Commission and in just the electric grid network, there's a real tie-up in getting through all the paperwork and all the analysis to approve these solar arrays. So really, it's my hope that the incoming administration can help us administratively in all these things. And it's my hope that the new council and the new committee, my committee and others, can help to address some of these bottlenecks that have really been a challenge up until now.
Okay,
Great,
so
thank
I'm
you.
going to suggest that we try to do briefer responses. We have a lot more questions, both in the chat and with hands raised and stuff. We have a person on the phone. If you could identify yourself first and last name and any affiliation, but you're up next.
Hello.
Welcome. Hi, who's this?
Yes. Hi. This is Fred Kamara.
Hi, Fred.
I am yes. I am a person with a disability, currently facing housing problems, and I was very delighted to hear emphasis laid on providing affordable housing. And I would like the Congress people concerned in that committee to pay particular attention to persons with disabilities, because as you may appreciate, persons with disabilities suffer more than anybody else when it comes to getting things like that. So that's my appeal. I am really delighted to hear that some emphasis has been paid towards the provision of affordable housing. And I look forward to seeing this put in action.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you for your comment. And Joyce Lippman also put something like that in the chat. So thank you. We all share your concern and interest. And so thank you for speaking out. Carl, you're going to be next, but I'm going to do a detour to Rockville Council member Mark Pershela, who put something in the chat about I-270 and the money that Rockville has expended. Mark, if you're here, let's toss it to you and then we'll go back to Carl.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't mean this to be in the middle of the conversation, but Rockville had to file an MPIA request to get the underlying
Maryland Public Information Act request.
Right.
It's a
Yes,
transparency.
thank you once again for filling in the acronym. But also, we had to. It took a lot of effort not only to formulate the request, but we had to pay over $9,000 to get it, and really, when you have projects like this, that data should just be available. So, it's not like Rockville can't afford it, but it's just the principle of the thing and the effort it took to get it. That's all. Thank you.
Who are you suggesting, council member? Who are you suggesting that the money should come from? MDOT, the Maryland Department of Transportation?
Whoever we paid it to. I don't know. I mean, I think it was DOT that we had to pay.
I'm a little curious about this. If the city of Rockville, we have our city manager, Rob Despirito. I agree with you sometimes on the principle of the matter. You kind of have to fight the battles because it's the right thing to do. If it's worth someone's time to just do a quick letter to us, we can look into it and see if it's a Hail Mary or whether we can at least make the case.
All right. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thanks for raising the question. Carl Van Ness, Smart Salt, Muddy Branch. Thank you for your persistent leadership. You're up next.
Thank you very much. I hope that this delegation will continue to support our salt applicator bill again this year. Delegate Shi will be pushing this in the House. Over 330 of your neighbors, city council members, MCDCC members, Montgomery County Council members, and District 17 club members have signed a petition requesting your action on salt issues and on the salt applicator bill. Will we be able to move forward with this? Thank you.
So I'm going to take this one. I sponsored the bill last year, as some of you may know. Salt is terribly dangerous for our waterways because it obviously runs off. If you put too much on, it runs off into the bay ultimately and into our own local waterways, which is bad for plant life and the critters who live in the water. So I was proud to sponsor it last year. As much as I tried working with Delegate Shi, it still wasn't that well crafted and that effective. And that's why I declined to do it this year. If it comes to the Senate, if it comes to my committee, and if it's thoughtful and will actually move the needle, I am totally enthusiastic. I think it's important that we address it. We just have to figure out how. And in the Hogan administration, we were not going to get voluntary compliance. Maybe in the Moore Miller administration, we can get some more collaboration, but it was a complicated issue. Something needs to be done. I don't know if we've hit upon it yet. So Carl, let's continue to talk and we'll see what we can figure out. So thank you for the question and thank you for your advocacy. It's important. Zainab Abbas, you are up next. Welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for giving us this opportunity. Just had a quick question. I run a nonprofit organization, so I take to you that offers STEM education to students. And we recently acquired office space right next to Gaithersburg High School. And earlier you mentioned the bond initiative, and I am interested in knowing the process. We would like to expand the space that we have. The landlord is 100% backing us to pursue the bond initiative to expand the space so that we can offer our programs to more students right here in Gaithersburg. Thank you.
Thank you, Zainab. Just to be clear for anyone else who's having similar musings, bond bills or legislative bond initiatives is for capital improvements. It's for building buildings. It's for doing stuff that lasts for years and years. It's not for paying people or printing up, buying books or anything. It's really sort of a big thing. We start working on these a long time in advance. We tend to do site visits. We have meetings. We have a large number of folks who are interested in getting us to help this year. But if you have a capital project that you'd like us to consider for future years, when you're ready, please feel free to reach out over the summer after we are done in Annapolis, and we would be happy to learn more about it. And while on that note, I just want to acknowledge that a bunch of our staffers are here. And I saw that Nicole Rios is here, who is Joe Vogel's chief of staff. He referenced her. She's in the room. Matt, Julie Polakovich-Carr. Do you want to, I guess you guys should do your people. But anyway, but Michael McKinney and Garrett Beloff and Matthew Kiviat and Susan Burkett are here from part of my team. And Kumar, do you have any of your staffers who were able to join us tonight?
Well, I don't know if Kathy is here. She might be. I'm not sure. I can't see all the people on the screen easily.
Yes. And Matt Harrington is Julie Polakovich-Carr's wonderful aide. So thank you to all of the staffers who help us do our jobs and be responsive with you all. So thank you for that. I want to go back to the comments. John Bayerl wanted to know about Ben Kramer's bill about the Park and Planning Commission. Does anyone want to speak to that?
As chair of the delegation, I could just say that both of Senator Kramer's bills on that subject are still in the hands of our Metro Area Washington Committee. We had an initial discussion on those pieces of legislation, and they will be scheduled to come back before the committee in the coming weeks.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for the question, John. Let me also acknowledge that there may be some questions that were in the chat that we may not get to tonight. I'm trying to sort of navigate both of those, but we will, all four of us will be given copies of the chat. So you're expressing your views and stuff will be seen. So let's see, Susan Lyons, and then I'll come to you, Faith. Susan Lyons asked about election workers and that they are threatened. I sponsored an amendment to a bill last year that was protecting healthcare workers, and I tried putting in election workers. It was not, it was too late in the process. And although everyone agreed it was a good idea, so I was going to bring that back in a bill. I checked in with the Attorney General's office, and they believe that our election workers are sufficiently protected under current law. So I pushed hard, but they think current law is sufficient. So I am not putting that in a bill. But I do believe that we need to honor, respect, and thank our hardworking election officials. And frankly, anyone who volunteers, anyone who is helping canvass ballots, working at our polling places, they are not recognized and protected the way they should, in my opinion. Faith Kirk, you're up next.
I just unmuted. I was very interested in what steps we intend on the state level to take to try to corral the rise in hate crimes, especially in the area of anti-Semitism. I have not heard much about that. And I think it's an extremely important thing, especially what we have seen in the last few months.
Thank you for the question. I'm going to snag this one as well. First off, I want to recognize the incredible work of Council Member Andrew Friedson from the district right next door to us. He worked for a very long time, and frankly, I thought it took more time and more effort than it should have. There was a county council resolution that ultimately did pass unanimously that basically condemned hate and violence, and that shouldn't have been controversial. I think all of us should condemn hate and violence, whether it's against Asian Pacific Islanders, members of the LGBTQ community, Jews, African Americans. Like, we should just be against hate and violence regardless of who it is, and somehow that became controversial. We have seen a tremendous uptick in anti-Semitic graffiti and acts and threats, and it is terrifying. As someone who is Jewish, I can tell you it's really scary. So there is one more thing that I'm going to say on this issue. There are some people who are, and then I'll toss it, Joe, you want to say something also? So there are surveys that show that young people have not been taught about the Holocaust, and they just are unfamiliar. And I think we do need to address Holocaust education. I think we need to learn about people who are different from ourselves. And that's why this whole critical race theory and all this crazy stuff and banning books and stuff that's being done in other states, that will not happen in Maryland. But neither should, in my opinion, mandating curriculum. So while I think that it should be taught, I will not support mandating that it be taught in every school around the state. So I have had conversations with our state superintendent of education. So while it sounds like a good idea, it is a slippery slope, and we'd be having mandates on every single issue and would not be able to teach regular classes like how to write and how to do math. So Joe Vogel, is there something, Delegate Vogel, is there something you want to add?
Yeah, first, Faith, let me just thank you for bringing up that issue, right? Immediately after an event, we've seen too many of these incidents. Recently, graffiti right at Walt Whitman High School that said Jews are not welcome, and there was an incident on the trail near our district that was, I'm not even going to repeat what it said, but it was violent in nature. And I think part of this, intersects with the rise in violence and hate that we're seeing online, and we all have to acknowledge that what happens online unfortunately does not stay online, especially when it comes to hate and violence. So thank you for bringing this up. And I agree, we have to keep talking about this. I will say that I've had plenty of conversations with colleagues here in the House who are working on these issues. I mentioned earlier that I'm working on a bill right now that would help provide more resources to an existing task force of organizations from across the state, of faith organizations and law enforcement groups and law enforcement and folks in the office of the Attorney General, to turn that into a commission and provide it with the resources that it needs, and also task it with providing a legislative report. I think what we've seen so far here is kind of a piecemeal approach to addressing the issue of hate crimes. I want to see us take a more holistic view at the issue, and then a more holistic view at the solutions. I'll just add one more point here, which is that there are the senator was talking about Holocaust education. I've heard of some potential solutions to that issue that are not related to that are not mandates, right? And that I think would in part address that issue, which is too many young people not knowing about the horrors of the Holocaust. So I will keep you updated, Faith, on the work that we're going to be doing this session, but I hope that we'll be able to get some important bills on this subject across the finish line.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Great add-on. Wonderful Nancy Breen, who has done so much for Rockville bicyclists. Welcome. You're up next.
Thank you, Cheryl, and thanks to all of District 17, because it's wonderful to live in a state and a county with such delegates, because you guys do a great job. So it's a pleasure. I am going to talk about cycling because Rockville and other municipalities have been working hard to get bike lanes and a better infrastructure, signage, parking, so that bikes can have the infrastructure that cars have. And so that people can go back and forth between their homes and transit, as I think it was Julie mentioned, maybe it was you, Cheryl, but not everybody has a car, not everybody wants a car. And so bikes and walking, we need to have a multimodal infrastructure available to us with full connectivity. And I'm so glad that we have several young people on our board, on our delegation, because I think they're particularly attuned to the need for multimodal transportation. And they're not in love with cars like my generation was in love with cars. So what I wanted to talk about tonight is that the municipalities have been working hard, and more recently, the state has started to put bike lanes. And they've recently put bike lanes on Old Georgetown Road. That is a work in progress. They're not finished yet. I think the state probably could have communicated to drivers that these bike lanes were coming, because there's quite a controversy around them. But in general, there was a rally and we rode those bike lanes the other day, and they're good. They need a little improvement, but they're good. But I wanted to bring this to the attention of the delegation, thank the delegation, and encourage them to do more, because getting those state roads with cycling and walking infrastructure increases safety and allows connectivity so that we can get around between municipalities, because as you know, we're a very, very mobile population here. So thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for everything you do.
Nancy, thank you. If you were talking about anything other than bicycles, I would think that there was an imposter in your Zoom room there. So thank you for all your advocacy. Delia Polakovich-Carr, you've been such a leader on bikes and pedestrians and stuff. Do you want to speak to that? Anything you want to add?
Well, I just want to say thank you, Nancy, for you and your colleagues' advocacy on this. We're glad to see that the city of Rockville is taking up some issues in regards to roadway safety as well for this legislative session, and just look forward to working with you all on that. Infrastructure is key, but we also just need to make sure the laws are in place so that people, feel safe and certainly get justice when there is unfortunately an accident and those issues go to court. So thanks.
Thank you. Kumar, there was a question in the chat that's a little bit provocative, and I love it, and I'm going to toss it to you.
Oh, of course.
Of course. You're the senior guy here. Why do businesses choose Virginia over Maryland, and what can we do about it, is my paraphrase of it.
Well,
You have your magic wand ready?
yeah, taxes are an issue. We can't say that that's not an issue, number one. Number two, regulation is an issue. Northern Virginia in particular is very good at smoothing over regulations for businesses. I think especially when it comes to housing investment in apartment buildings in particular, the zoning is a lot easier in Northern Virginia, especially Loudoun County, than it is in Montgomery and Prince George's counties. Now, having said all of these things, job creation statistics, while they're very good in Loudoun County, Montgomery County's job creation statistics have not been good over the last 6 years. But Fairfax County has had some difficulties as well. So it's not a simple issue. But I will say, I'm the CFO of an environmental company here in Rockville, and I've not had any of the kind of problems that other businesses have had. We've made good money for the 30 years that I've worked for this firm. But, I talked to a lot of business people in chamber meetings who've talked about difficulties getting approvals from Montgomery County in particular. And I think that's something that has to be addressed.
Thank you, Kumar. Delegate Barve. Harvey Blank, you're up next.
Thank you. Had two questions. One, and I'm a senior citizen and they both affect me. The one, I've had a very good dialogue with Julie Polakovich-Carr on this issue about the wobbly state of the Maryland Prepaid College Trust Fund, which I might add, I have 2 grandchildren who I've invested into this fund. And I understand there will be some hearings coming up. I wonder if you had any further information about what the legislature intends to do with respect to this fund. And the second question, I'd like someone to address. As a senior citizen on a fixed income, I am very concerned about what I've read in the news media about a proposal made by the Kroger Corporation to take over Safeway and merge. And I'm concerned about the antitrust implications of that. I don't trust the federal government to really stop it or do anything. I know it'll impair our ability to have prices under control. And I wonder if the state of Maryland could do something aside from the Attorney General, if there's any legislative inquiry to look into the anti-competitive potentials of this proposed merger. We are in Montgomery County, we have Harris Teeter, which is a Kroger subsidiary, and then we of course have Safeway, which is owned by Cerberus Corporation, and then we have Giant. And
Okay,
frankly,
Harvey, I'm gonna cut you off if I could, so
Go
we have
ahead.
time to answer both your questions, because we are coming near the end of our time.
Go ahead.
Delegate Vogel, do you want to speak to 529 accounts?
Yes, I was trying to look up the information for when the briefing is. I believe it's on Friday, sometime around noon. If you just give me like 2 minutes, I'll be able to find that for you.
Okay, while you're looking for that, does anyone want to talk about Safeway and Kroger? I don't have any information on that. But thank you for mentioning it. It's good to put stuff on our radar screen. While we'll come back to you, Joe, if you end up with information on 529. What I'd like to do, Nancy, we're gonna start wrapping up. I'm sorry. But Aileen Klein put in the chat a question about death with dignity, compassionate choice, aid in dying, right to die, whatever it is called. But I think I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but I'm pretty sure that all 4 of us are as passionate about it as I am. And so I'll go first, but if each of us wants to say something briefly about that, and then if we each want to take 1 minute to close up, and then we will wrap at 9 o'clock. Does that sound good, colleagues? You good? Okay, so death with dignity in the Senate several years ago failed on a tie vote, 23-23, with 1 senator abstaining, which was against the rules because he was in the chamber. When you're in the chamber, you're supposed to cast a vote, and we are 47 members. The Democrats picked up 2 seats, but I can tell you that not all Democratic senators, unfortunately, are pro-choice or pro-death with dignity or as progressive on some social issues as we might like. But there are several new senators who have not particularly been tested on this issue. So it is important. I know that the House, and I think a lot of us are really passionate about this, hope it can get through. And I can tell you, I have great confidence that we would not have to worry about a veto from the governor. So Kumar, do you want to speak to this issue? Then we'll go Julie.
Unfortunately, we show more compassion and concern for our pets than we do for our family members sometimes. I was very fortunate that neither of my parents, when they passed away, they passed away very peacefully. But that was dumb luck, and we can't rely on that.
Yeah. Julie, Delegate Palaktrus-Cart.
Yeah, I'll say the failure of this bill in the last term, I think, really was one of the great failures of the last 4-year term. So I certainly hope that the legislation is coming back, and I'll certainly vote for it again.
Delegate Vogel, Joe?
As will I.
Good. Well, I'm going to be working it in the Senate. And so hopefully Aileen and anyone on this call who cares about that issue, please make sure you're reaching out and protesting and tweeting and posting and whatever else. With that, let's each take a minute. We're going to, thanks for the question, Aileen. Joe, we're going to start with you, and then we'll go around. And if you want to start and take a moment on 529s, if you have the answer.
Absolutely. Harvey, the 529 calculations hearing, it will be in the Appropriations Committee in the House. It's Thursday, January 19th, so this Thursday at 1:30 p.m. And I'll send in the chat right now. Written testimony can be sent to an email here before Thursday. So I would encourage you to do that. But I just want you to know that this is, I've heard from constituents on this issue already. And I know that this is an issue that unfortunately legislators from across the state have been hearing about. And I know that there's a lot of energy to take some action on it. Hopefully we'll be, and we'll keep you updated. I think someone from my team or I will try to join that briefing on Thursday. To wrap up, let me just say how grateful I am once again for the honor that I have of representing all of you and serving all of you. It really is. I'm in awe to be sitting in that chamber every day, and really a chamber that has seen so much history and so much progress. And we have a lot of work to do in the next 84 days. And I can promise you that I will be working as hard as I can, knowing that my job here is to work for you. And I don't take that for granted. So thank you all. Thank you for being here tonight, and look forward to seeing you all in Annapolis. Come visit.
Thank you, Joe. Delegate Julie Polakovich-Carr, you're up next.
Well, thank you again, everyone, for being here with us this evening and raising so many great issues. And we'll do our best to follow up with folks if you left messages in chat after tonight. Again, just put out the invitation. Please reach out to us as we can be of service in any way, or whatever is on your mind as we go through the session and beyond. We definitely are here to serve. And I'll also just put a plug in, as several of us do very robust legislative newsletters, and would encourage folks to sign up for those if you don't already receive them. It's a great way to find out what's going on here in Annapolis and in the state government.
Dynamite. Thank you, Delegate. Delegate Kumar Barve.
Yeah, thank you very much for being here. I've always appreciated the questions. My email address is the very easy to remember, kumarbarve@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you. I've worked with many of you on many issues. Carl and I have talked a lot about SALT, and we do need to find a solution this year to that if it's possible. And I look on that and on so many other issues. I look forward to hearing from you and working with you. That's it. A real pleasure, and let's just stay in touch.
Thank you, Kumar. So I just want to echo some of what has already been said. We so love hearing from you all, and we can help you with challenges that you may face with state agencies, unemployment checks that didn't arrive, a problem at the MVA, something with your voter registration. I mean, there are agencies and stuff that we are in regular touch with, so please don't hesitate on that. You can follow along with what we're doing without needing to drive down if that's not your preference. So based on your schedule, your abilities, or your transit access. But we are now in the Senate and House doing in-person and online hearings. And so we have a hybrid, and you can testify in writing, in person, or through Zoom. And so we're all starting hearings. As I said, I've got 2 bill hearings on Thursday. So things are starting to move, and you can watch and stay connected that way. Transparency in government is critically important. Delegate Polakovich-Carr mentioned newsletters. I do a weekly email with updates on the legislation that we're working on. So as she said, feel free to go to my website, cherylkagan.org, and sign up to be added to my newsletter list. And definitely consider watching tomorrow for news of Wes Moore, Maryland's first African-American governor, and only the 3rd elected African-American governor in American history. And it's all going to be so exciting. So definitely check that out. And we look forward to seeing you in person or online in the near future. And again, I want to give a shout out to Michael Tardif for helping to facilitate and coordinate. He's awesome. And we love you. Thank you so much. Thank you to my colleagues. We've got a great team, and look forward to working together to get things done for Gaithersburg and Rockville. With that, thank you all. And
muted.
Thank you too. This is
Thank
great.
you very much.
Thank
Thank
you. Bye.
Really appreciate all you.
Bye.
Great job.
Bye, gang.
Thank you.